Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and another watercolour colour mixing tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to mix the perfect purple, and by the end of this video you'll be able to do the same. Purple is sometimes considered a difficult colour to mix, but by understanding a bit of colour theory and trying things out, you'll realise that it's actually quite simple. So let's get started. For my materials today, I'm going to be using a few of the colours from this 20 tube set of Winsor and Newton Cotman watercolours, which I'll leave details of in the description box below, along with any other materials I use and the reference photo from Pixabay. This is their student range, which are a great option if you're just starting out in watercolour or want a more affordable paint without compromising too much on quality. And I'll show you how I use them to paint this stormy purple sky later on in the video. But don't worry if you don't have exactly the same colours as me, as I will be suggesting some alternatives when we get to colour mixing. Before we start mixing our watercolours though, let's take another look at the colour wheel for a quick recap. As you probably know, you can mix two primary colours together to make the secondary colours. So mixing yellow and red together makes orange, mixing blue and yellow together gives you a green, and mixing red and blue together makes purple, right? Well, not always. Sometimes, however hard you try, mixing red and blue together just creates a muddy brown and leaves us frustrated and reaching for the ready-mix convenience purples. And there's nothing wrong with that, I do it all the time. However, the solution is simple and lies in which red we choose. Let's take a closer look at where red is on the colour wheel. Red is generally thought of as being a warm colour, along with the other colours to the left-hand side of my paintbrush. Blues and greens, on the other hand, are considered cool colours, to the right of my paintbrush. But not all reds are the same. Some are warmer and more orange, and others are cooler and more purple. And you can better see what I mean when I place the colours in this set around the colour wheel. I've also included this cadmium scarlet just to show you an example of a really orangey red. I'm going to put that just here. Next I have cadmium deep hue, and this is kind of a middle red. We also have alizarin crimson hue, which is a cooler red. Lastly in the set we have permanent rose, and this is definitely leaning more towards purple or blue than it is towards orange or yellow. So I'm going to put it here. So why does this matter? Well, let's consider what we know about complementary colours. Complementary colours are colours that sit opposite each other on the colour wheel, and when mixed together, neutralise each other out and create greys and browns. And I used this to my advantage in my last painting, where I used the complementary colours orange and blue to mix the greys and browns for my Indian elephant painting. And I'll put a link to that video in the card above if you didn't see it. As you may know, the colour opposite to purple on the colour wheel is yellow. So mixing yellow and purple together will create a neutral or brown colour. So it stands to reason then that if we want to mix the perfect purple, we need to avoid using yellow, or more specifically the warmer reds, as the closer our red is to yellow, the more likely it is that we'll create a muddy purple when we mix it with blue. You can see that here. I'm mixing cadmium scarlet with ultramarine blue. Cadmium scarlet is a very orangey red, and so when mixed with the blue, gives us not purple but brown. If, however, I try it again and mix my alizarin crimson hue with ultramarine blue, the result is a much cleaner and much more distinctive purple, because alizarin crimson is a much cooler red and further away from orange or yellow on the colour wheel. You can also change the purple by changing the proportion of red or blue in your mix. We can also take this a step further and try mixing our coolest red, the permanent rose, with ultramarine. This could be described as more of a pink than a red, but out of all of our reds, this is furthest away from orange, which will neutralise our blue, and yellow, which will muddy our resulting purple. So it mixes to produce a really clean and bright purple. I really like this combination, so decided to experiment a bit more to see if I could colour match the two ready-made purples in my set. Here we have one of my favourite purples, dioxazine purple, and this one here is Purple Lake. To try and match this colour, I used more permanent rose than ultramarine, and after a few attempts got quite close, and then diluted my mix with water to achieve a colour and value closer to that of the tube. For the dioxazine purple, I used more pigment, as this is a really dark purple, and I added more ultramarine than permanent rose this time, to try and match with the ready-made colour. It's not perfect, but it's not bad. Okay, so we've talked about why it's so important to choose a cool red when mixing purple, and if you haven't got the same as I have, you can get some lovely purples by using magenta instead. Or if you're not worried about light fastness, then opera rose makes a beautiful, brilliant purple. But how important is it to choose the right blue? Well, as I mentioned earlier, blues and greens are cooler colours, so you can use most blues to make purple as long as you're using a cool red. Here I'm using Viridian Hue and Permanent Rose to show that you can even use green to make a lovely purple. And as before, you can add more Permanent Rose or more green to create a whole range of different purple hues. For my Stormy Night sky painting though, I stuck to using the different blues in my set. I began this painting by masking out the brightest central part of the lightning fork with a masking pen. Once that had dried, I mixed up a mauve using Permanent Rose and Ultramarine Blue again. I also added in a bit of cerulean blue and diluted the mix with water before applying it to damp paper, so that I could get nice soft paint edges. Once that had dried, I masked out some more lightning forks to preserve some of the mauve colour, and then I was ready to mix up some really dark purples. I wanted to mix up more of the dioxazine purple colour I'd made earlier, so I used more pigment and less water when I mixed the Permanent Rose and Ultramarine Blue together. I pre-wet the whole area again just using clean water, and painted this mix around the mauve area. Because the paper was damp, the paint edges were fuzzy and soft. Whilst this was still damp, I mixed a darker purple, still using the ultramarine, but this time mixing in some alizarin crimson hue. At the bottom here, I also mixed more of a dark indigo blue, still using the ultramarine and alizarin crimson. On this side, I tried mixing turquoise with alizarin crimson hue, and I really loved the dark purpley midnight blue that it made. I added another layer using similar mixes and colours, and when that was completely dry, I removed the masking fluid. And whilst I loved the dramatic contrast of the bright white against the paper, as well as the lighter purple lightning forks, I thought it was a bit unnatural, so I decided to take a small damp flat brush to soften it out a bit, and help it to have a bit more of a natural glow to it. I also went in with a white Prismacolor pencil just to add in some more little details. I was quite happy with it at this point, so I peeled off the tape, but after coming back to it decided I needed to blur the really white areas where I'd masked out some more, and so went and added some of Dr. P.H. Martin's bleedproof white. I dabbed this onto damp paper so it would bleed out a bit and create more of a jagged edge than the smooth edge the masking fluid had left, and I preferred how it looked that way, and I just love all the different purples. I hope you enjoyed the video and now feel confident to try mixing your own purples. All you have to remember is the perfect purple starts with a perfectly cool red. So give it a try, experiment with the colours you have, and let me know in the comments which combinations are your favourite. Thank you so much for watching, take care, have a great weekend, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!